Hello, night travelers. Welcome to Night Lantern. Tonight, we're venturing into the shadows, to a place where the living meet the lost. Settle in, turn down the lights, and let the road take you. Have you ever driven down an empty road at night, surrounded by fog, feeling like you're the only one there, but deep down, sensing you're not alone? The start of a dark night. I often thought that the night was the best time to relax or be alone, far from the hustle and bustle of the city. As a truck driver, I was used to working at night, driving on empty, quiet roads. Roads that were rarely inhabited, except for the occasional driver or animal passing by. But something felt incredibly different that night, a night that would change my life forever. I was driving down a road I had been on many times before, a road that people would often call empty, though that didn't mean it was free from danger. Located deep in the English countryside, this road stretched over 100 kilometers, filled with sharp turns and cliffs that awaited anyone who veered off course. But what made it even more eerie was the fog that often descended once night arrived. Thick and dark, it would sometimes appear without warning. That night, the fog came down faster than usual, enveloping the road with a thickness I had never expected. When I turned on my high beams, it was as if they only reflected the light back into my eyes, creating an illusion of a white wall blocking my view. I felt as though I was driving through empty space, directionless, trapped in an uncanny solitude. My heart began to race, as though the universe was warning me of something terrible that was about to happen. I drove slower, trying to stay balanced, but the fog only grew thicker with each passing minute, forcing my vision to shrink. That gnawing sense of fear began creeping in. I started to think maybe I should stop for a while, wait for the fog to lift or at least thin out. But the urge to keep moving forward was strong. I felt like I had to get home, for reasons I couldn't explain. I felt as if something was urging me on, something bigger than just the desire to get back home. The fear that had built up inside me pressed me to focus entirely on the road ahead. Every tree that loomed dimly in the fog seemed like a monster waiting to pounce. I bit my lip, trying to calm myself. It's just exhaustion, I told myself. It's just an overreaction. But the longer I drove, the more intense the feeling grew, the more I began to realize that something wasn't right. That strange feeling kept following me, making me feel as though I was being watched. This road, although I had traveled it many times before, always brought an unexplainable feeling. It was a place where fog would always arrive so quickly, and every time I passed through it, there was an underlying tension I couldn't describe. Locals around here often spoke of this road, calling it the Death Road, and now, tonight, I felt like I was facing the very fate that had long been waiting for me. The accident that changed everything. I kept driving through the thickening fog. Each turn felt sharper, each second weighed down with pressure. I began to feel as though the fog wasn't just regular fog. Something darker, something more terrifying, was surrounding me. This road started to feel like a tunnel, an endless path that led only to silence and emptiness. Then, without warning, everything happened in an instant. 1 second I was driving cautiously, and the next, my truck lost control. I tried to steer, but it was as if there was an invisible hand pulling me off the road. My vision spun, and my body was thrown forward, and in the blink of an eye, I felt a hard impact as the truck slammed into a large tree at the side of the road. There was a loud crunching sound, then everything went silent. I felt an excruciating pain all over my body, blood flowing from wounds on my face and body. My vision blurred, the sounds around me faded, as if the world had come to a halt. As my consciousness began to fade, I caught a glimpse of shadows moving among the trees, figures that I could only make out in my semi-conscious state. There was something there, something I couldn't explain, like beings watching my crash. But I couldn't do anything. My body went limp, and eventually, I lost all sense of awareness. I don't know how long I lay unconscious. When I opened my eyes, everything felt strange. The fog was still there, thicker than before, but something was different. This world no longer felt the same. The road, the fog, it all felt darker, more oppressive. I felt as though I was trapped in a world that was no longer mine. I tried to rise, but my body felt heavy, so heavy. I wanted to scream, to call for help, but no sound came out. I felt as if something was blocking me, something preventing me from leaving this place. I looked around, but there was no one, only fog, only silence. Slowly, I realized something shocking. I wasn't in the same world anymore. Everything around me seemed unfamiliar, yet this road was one I had driven many times. The fog was thicker, darker, and there was something terribly unnatural about this place. I felt as if I were caught between two worlds, the real one and this one that was darker, quieter. The death road's background. I kept walking without a destination. Each step felt heavy, as if the road didn't want to let me go. The thick fog surrounded me, obscuring my vision. The trees lining the road seemed larger and darker than I remembered. Their trunks stretched out like arms, reaching, grasping for anyone who passed by. This was the road they called the Death Road, a road filled with terrifying stories from drivers who had passed through here. People often talked about the horrific accidents that had occurred here, trucks overturning, cars crashing into trees, lives lost without a trace. But I never believed those stories. Back then, I just thought they were myths, tales made to scare people. But now, I could feel it myself. This road wasn't just an ordinary road. It was something more, something beyond just a highway. It felt as if there were a force here, something pulling me, keeping me here, forcing me to remain in this place, stuck in a time that would never end. Every night, the fog would come faster, thicker, and darker. This road was never truly empty. There was always something here, even though it was unseen. Sometimes I'd hear soft sounds, the rapid steps of feet, or whispers carried from the forest. When I turned to look, there was no one, just fog and silence. I felt more and more trapped. Every step I took felt like I was walking in circles, even though I was sure I had walked a long way. This road seemed to loop back on itself endlessly. I didn't know where I was going. I could only follow my steps, feeling farther and farther from reality. The truck driver encounter. One night, I saw a large truck approaching, its headlights piercing through the dense fog, so bright that it nearly blinded me. Standing by the side of the road, I waved my hand nervously, hoping the driver would see me, hoping that this time, I might finally escape. For the first time, I saw the vehicle slow down as the driver looked at me, as though he could truly see me. A strange sense of relief flooded my chest, like a small glimmer of hope shining through my soul that had long been trapped in darkness. The man got out of the truck, walking toward me with a tense expression on his face. I could sense his fear, but I tried to appear non-threatening. With a trembling voice, I begged for his help, asking him to take me to the nearest town. Even though I didn't know where exactly I wanted to go, I just wanted to get away from this cursed road, if only for a moment. Sitting beside him in the truck, I felt an eerie warmth I hadn't felt in ages, but I could see the driver's face tighten with worry and fear. I didn't want to frighten him, but suddenly, the atmosphere in the truck turned cold. The further we drove, the stronger I felt the pull of that road, as if there were an invisible force keeping me there. I tried to resist, yet it was hopeless, as though my soul was bound to this place, to this road, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't break free. The driver's expression changed, his eyes widening with terror, and I wanted to tell him I meant no harm, that I only sought help, but before I could speak, everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on that road, in the same fog, surrounded by the same suffocating silence. Becoming part of the death road. Since that night, I knew I would forever be part of this road. This road wasn't just any road, it was a labyrinth for souls trapped within it. Every night, I see other shadows, perhaps they are souls like mine, stranded here, walking without direction, lurking behind the fog. It's been days, weeks, or maybe even months, though I can't quite tell. Time here has lost all meaning. The road, the fog, and the shadows they remain, unchanged, a perpetual cycle I cannot escape. Every time I try to leave, to walk in a different direction, I find myself back where I started. The trees, the thick mist, the distant silhouettes of figures that I can't quite make out. Everything is the same. It's as though the road itself is alive, twisting and warping reality, forcing me to follow its path. I no longer know if I am alive or dead. Sometimes, I can feel the faint pulse of my heartbeat, but it's as if it's not mine. It's as if it's coming from somewhere deep inside the fog, some place that doesn't belong in this world. When I focus on the sounds around me, they seem distant, as if they're coming from another plane altogether far away, yet right beside me at the same time. Every time I close my eyes, I see flashes of memories, my old life, my family, the days when I was a simple truck driver making a living. The smell of fresh air, the warmth of sunlight on my skin. I can still feel the weight of my hands gripping the steering wheel. But when I open my eyes, I'm met with the cold, damp fog, the endless road, and the grotesque shadows that flicker just beyond my sight. Sometimes I think I hear whispers, faint voices that call my name, but when I turn, there's no one there. Not even a trace of life, yet I know that I am being watched. I can feel their presence, the lost souls, the spirits, whatever they are. They linger in the mist, just out of reach, always watching, always waiting for me to step into their domain. I've tried everything to break free. I've run as fast as I can, screaming for help, but my voice gets swallowed by the thick fog. I've climbed trees, hoping to see over the mist, but the trees only stretch higher and higher, the fog always rising with me, trapping me in an endless loop. There's no escape. The haunting voices. One night, I stumbled across a figure standing in the middle of the road, barely visible in the swirling mist. It was a man, tall, gaunt, with an eerie, hollow expression. He didn't speak, but I could sense that he was aware of my presence. I called out to him, desperate for some kind of answer, some shred of hope that I wasn't completely alone in this nightmare. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. But the man didn't answer. He just stood there, as still as the fog itself. I took a step closer, and that's when I heard the whispers, faint at first, then growing louder. They weren't coming from the man, no. They were coming from the trees, the road, the very air itself. The voices swirled around me, unrecognizable at first, but then I began to make them out. "They are here, trapped, but just like you." The voice sounded like it came from all directions, reverberating through the fog. My heart raced as I realized that the man was not the only soul in this place. There were others, more than I could count, all wandering the mist, all trapped in this forsaken road. The figure finally turned to face me, his hollow eyes staring directly into mine. "You're one of us now," he said, his voice a low, gravelly whisper. I recoiled, stepping back, my mind reeling. "No, I can't be. I'm not like you," I protested, though deep down, I could feel a horrifying truth rising to the surface. "You will be," the man replied cryptically. "We all were once like you, alive, but now we wander forever." Before I could respond, the figure vanished into the mist, leaving only his haunting words to echo in the still air. That's when the realization hit me: the death road didn't just claim lives. It claimed souls, and once you entered, there was no leaving. You were lost, just another wandering spirit caught in the never-ending loop of fog and shadows. The endless loop. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The more I wandered, the more I realized that this place wasn't just a road, it was a prison. The fog wrapped itself around my soul, distorting my thoughts, clouding my mind. I tried to make sense of everything, to understand what was happening, but the longer I stayed, the more I lost my grip on reality. I would occasionally come across other figures, more lost souls, just like me. Some would speak, others would simply stare into the void, their eyes hollow and vacant. They were all prisoners of the road, trapped in an endless cycle, unable to break free. I began to understand the truth of what the man had said. We were all once like the living, just ordinary people, but now, we were nothing more than shadows, drifting in the mist. There were times when I would think I saw a light in the distance, maybe a car approaching, a way out. But as I ran toward it, the light would fade, vanishing into the fog as if it had never existed. It was a cruel trick, a mirage that taunted me with the possibility of escape, only to pull it away just when I thought I was free. The last struggle. I had been walking for what felt like days when I finally came across something unexpected. A house standing alone in the middle of the road. It was an old, decaying structure, its windows shattered, its door hanging off its hinges. It shouldn't have been there. There was nothing in this place but the road and the fog. Yet there it was, a beacon of something familiar, something real. I approached cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. The door creaked as I pushed it open, the hinges protesting loudly. Inside, the house was empty, save for dust and cobwebs. But in the corner of the room, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A mirror. It was cracked, but still functional, reflecting the dim light that filtered through the fog. I stood before the mirror, unsure of what I was hoping to see. My reflection stared back at me, but there was something wrong. The man in the mirror wasn't me. He was thinner, paler, his eyes wide with terror. I reached out to touch the glass, but my reflection did not mirror my movements. It was as if the man in the mirror was reaching back, beckoning me. Suddenly, the reflection grinned, a grotesque, mocking smile that sent a chill down my spine. "Welcome," it whispered, its voice echoing in the room. "You're one of us now." The world around me began to warp and twist. The room blurred, and the mirror shattered into 1,000 pieces. I fell backward, disoriented, as the fog rushed in, engulfing me once more. The final step. And now here I am, forever walking the death road. I've seen the horrors, heard the voices, and spoken with the lost souls. I've felt the suffocating grip of the fog, the never-ending pull of the road. There's no escape. There's no end. This place is my home now, as it is for all the others who are trapped here. The road claims us all, and we wander forever, seeking a freedom we can never have. So if you ever find yourself driving through the countryside at night, if you ever see that thick, oppressive fog roll in faster than you expect, remember my story. And remember, the road is never truly empty. Someone or something is always watching, waiting for the next soul to wander in, to join the never-ending procession of the lost. You've been warned.
Storyblocks Audio.
And so every time I open my eyes, I find myself back on that road, trapped in the endless fog. Maybe one day, I'll find a way out, or perhaps, like the others, I'll remain there forever. If you enjoy mystery and horror stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Night Lantern and turn on notifications so you won't miss any chilling tales. And let us know in the comments, what would you do if you were trapped on a road like this? Feel free to share your own scary experiences or theories about this story. See you on another night with even more terrifying tales.